Step 14 is another compression. Once again, we're going through compression. Why do we go back to step 10? Because when we go through the step number 11, step 12, step 13, what we have done is we have extended the project duration unknowingly. So by changing the relationships and reducing excess float and maybe throwing, some cost resources in there and looking at, the way, putting money different places, what we've done is we could possibly extend the duration. So we have to go back through step 11 through step 13, and we need to make sure the project schedule fits into the time frame allotted. So it's all about getting that critical path. And remember, the critical path is the longest path through the network, or better defined as the path with zero total and zero free float. Remember, there's only 4 ways we can do this. We can change the relationships, we can add resources, we can change the means and methods, or we can change the material. You can see in our schedule right now we have a negative 7 days of total float. So if we were to go to the schedule and say, remember, we can't just automatically do this. We have to talk with people, consider the consequences of what we're doing. So if we go through and we say HVAC rough-in, we do have to wait till all the stud framing is up? Not necessarily. We probably could do a start to start with a little bit of lag because we have a lot of overhead involved there. We'd like to make sure it falls within the room, with each of the rooms, but we could put the main trunk lines or something like that. We save some days there. We can say exterior stud framing. Well, do we need 10 duration days? Well, maybe we talk with exterior stud subcontractor, and he plans to have 20 duration days, right? And let's see, we're going to the status and go labor units. We'll put in 20, okay? And remember, man days never change, but duration days change. So rather than having 2 people for 10 days, maybe we talk with them and say, can you double your crew? Can you have 4 people for 5 days? And he says he can do that. So you can see we reduce the duration on the critical path. We'll do that till all the negative float is gone, and ultimately the last activity, certificate of occupancy inspection, will have a 0 amount of total float. Remember, we cannot do this arbitrarily. We have to think through the process. If we're changing relationships, we're adding resources, we have to talk to people, we have to consider the implications of what we're doing. We only want to reduce the amount of total, reduce the durations, or change the logic, or change the means and methods of the materials on critical path items, because doing it on non-critical path items doesn't help us reduce the project duration. So we must have a closed network in order to do this, so it's important that you go through and make sure everything has a successor or predecessor. A lot of times I'll click on the relationship tab and I'll just go through every activity, making sure everything has a predecessor and successor. Okay. Remember, only the first activity doesn't have a predecessor and the last activity doesn't have a successor. Those are constrained by dates, as we discussed before. So we need to come back around and ensure that we're fitting within the time frame allotted for the project between those 2 dates, from the start date and the finish date. This is essentially the same as step number 10, but later on in the process of schedule development, after we remove redundancies and reduce the excess float. So that covers step number 14, another compression.